Hey everyone, I'm Aaron Potratz.
And I'm Nathan Hawkins.
We are the Shrink Think
Podcast, baby.
Enjoy the show.
All right. You ready to go night-night? Because I am.
That's how we're starting. We're going to record and you're like,
Right.
Okay, Grandpa Simpson.
I've never watched The Simpsons. I watched one episode, I think. Is it still running?
No idea.
Okay. Well, you would know.
I would?
Sure.
Why?
Because I don't,
all
and
the
you've
TV
watched
that I
more than
watch.
one episode than me.
Well, when I was like a child.
I think it is still running.
Probably.
Oh my gosh.
Do you need me to like slap your face or whatever? Wake you up?
I'm not going to make all of your wildest dreams come true right now.
Luke, I am your father.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a hangover? Are you
like
still drunk?
Oh my gosh. I just noticed that when I was working with a couple one time.
I know you've said this.
But do they know?
Yes, you've done this on.
I know, but does the people listening right now to this episode know?
Because maybe they don't.
You ever think about that? We got to keep this stuff choppy.
By telling the same story.
No, not the same story. That's a different story.
No, it's the same one. You told it last time.
No, but I don't remember it that way, so I didn't.
Of course you don't remember it. Grandpa Simpson. Dude.
Cheers.
What's happening?
I don't know.
Okay, you ready? You think you can... Can you hang? Or are you going to fall asleep when I'm like, ready, go?
I hope
This is a
so.
solo
I want to see what
episode.
happens.
Nathan's
With my
sitting
eyelids
across
shut.
from me, but he's asleep. Welcome everybody to the show. It's just me.
And you hear in the background. What was that?
Casey, can you just edit that out? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Let's go. Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome to the Shrink Think Podcast. We are, as always, excited to be here with you. We are excited that you are here with us. Actually, that sounds a little bit narcissistic. We are excited to be here with you.
Oh, sorry.
We have a great series that we want to get kicked off today. In this episode, we're going to start it off. If you know anything about couples counseling, you might have heard the researchers John and Julie Gottman. They are like the most well-known, most researched, individuals in the couples counseling space. They hail from my hometown of Seattle, Washington, up at the University of Washington, where they have the Love Lab, and they can predict with, I believe it's like 92% accuracy or 94% accuracy, something like that. It's in the 90s, whatever.
I think it might be 98 actually.
No, it's not quite that high, but it's like ridiculously high. Within like the first like 4 minutes or 6 minutes of a couple arguing, they can determine whether or not that this couple, based on that, is going to stay together or break up. And the idea is that there are certain, relationship dynamics that are going on within that period of time that are strong predictors of a relationship not working out. Because ultimately, if these things are present and happening, obviously your relationship is, I'm not going to say doomed, but it's on its way toward a doomed outcome if you don't take any action to change it. So this is why couples counseling is really helpful and really important, because if you see these things happening in your relationship, you can say, oh no, if I keep doing this, it's kind of like you're at risk of a heart attack, right? If you keep eating this way, if your blood pressure stays high, if your cholesterol stays high, if you're whatever, you're at risk of having these problems unless you do something different to intervene and change that. So we're going to talk about what is some of this research, and specifically the Gottmans have come up with these 4 horsemen of the apocalypse for relationships. These 4 horsemen, if these are present, then these are relationship killers. And I'll read them today, and we're going to start with one of them, and in the next upcoming episodes we'll go through the remaining ones and break each one down and talk about what are these 4 horsemen, and then also what is the antidote to these 4 horsemen, so that you have an understanding if you're in a relationship and you're curious, I'm not sure if my relationship is doing well. Do I have any of these? You can identify which of the 4 horsemen you have, and then what can I do about it? So the 4 horsemen, according to the Gottmans research, number 1, criticism. Number 2, contempt. Number 3, defensiveness. And number 4, stonewalling. Criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Today, Nathan, you're kind of an idiot. We're going to talk about criticism. And I know you're not as smart as me.
More contempt, but let's just keep going.
Well, there's some contempt baked into the cake there. That's a stupid comment. But if you were listening, you would know you always do this. I'm just trying to explain to our audience what the thing is, and you just can never be quiet and never just let me explain what is wrong with you. Why can't you just be a good co-host of a podcast?
I can't ever be a good co-host. You're right.
I'll never be good enough. So that's criticism. That's what we're going to talk about today. Criticism, as you heard, is not just describing behaviors. Essentially, if you want to make a difference between criticism and a complaint might be something like, "Hey, Nathan, I noticed that you didn't put the coffee stuff away. You left it on the counter in our break room." That's a behavior. That's an action that he can change and do something about. And you can certainly have a complaint about that, even if it's a recurring sort of thing. Maybe it's like every single day or every week he does this. But that doesn't give me license, or it's not healthy to say, you always do that. That's where a complaint turns into a criticism. You always do this. You can never remember. The idea, I think, to me, as adding some stuff into some of what the Gottmans are saying about this, is that it's kind of like emotional reasoning. It's one of these cognitive distortions where this thing is happening and I've got emotions that are being infused into it. And so I'm taking the behavior, mixing in some emotions, whoosh, that is like lighting it on fire and turning it from a complaint about a behavior into a personality or a character attack on the other person. Like, you just can never remember what's wrong with you, right? And it goes from being something that's productive that Nathan can do something about to there's nothing he can do because he's just a big idiot.
So let me illustrate this for all of me and us, everyone. So I'm picking a national chain at random for no reason, but let's say that you're at a McDonald's, because they are everywhere, literally, in the world. And our podcast is everywhere in the world.
McDonald's, if you're listening, would you like to sponsor us? Please give us a call.
Okay, so let's say you're in a McDonald's. You have a bad experience, right? With, something, whatever. And it happens to be a person, though, somebody that's working for a McDonald's. And then you have to say something. So you grab a complaint card, which they have out like somewhere, and you write on there, "moron." And then you give it to him like, take that, buddy. Like when the person, and then you put it in a little box, right? So when the manager later is looking at this card, they see it says "moron." And then they take it and throw it in the trash. They have no idea what you're talking about. They have no idea if the person's even if you're even being serious, or what it is that you're saying.
Even if if you expand on that, even if on the comment card you wrote something like, the person that took my order was such an idiot. Like, this person has. I feel like I'm just saying idiot. I don't have really any criticism like in my head. I guess it's my only one I can think of. But the person was such a moron, right? That they should never work here. I don't know why you hired them in the first place. You should fire them. They're just a stain on your reputation or whatever. Like, okay, I have no idea what happened, no idea what they did wrong, or even why I should fire them, other than you think this person is a moron.
Right, which means a lot of things. Like, it means
nothing.
For the other person, right? So if you are the only information that if you're the person reading that card, is that okay, well, whoever wrote this was really mad. I don't know why they were really mad. They could have had an entirely bad day. This was, and they had maybe an awkward experience that this straw broke the camel of their day. I don't know if my employee did anything, like from the standpoint of like, was there an errant behavior? Did they simply, and I'm being a little more specific in this because I really think it's helpful to kind of like parse it out. Like if the employee in that situation just gave back the wrong change because they miscounted, like, okay, well, that's correctable. I don't believe my employee is all the bad names that they've been called. I can understand apparently this person's had a bad day and they just lost it when it comes to that. If, on the other hand, my employee like said something like to them like, wow, you are really an idiot or something. The employee said that. And I don't know that because this card doesn't talk about that at all. That would stink because I'd be like, man, I would like to know that my employees are treating people that way. I can understand why you're that mad, but you didn't say anything about it. They're just not, like Aaron was starting off with, there's not information that actually is helpful. So what's happening is all you're doing is giving your own emotional interpretation of something, and then you're projecting it onto the other person and saying this is what's actually happening. And what do you think they're going to do? They're going to entirely disagree with you.
And this is where I think if you look at those 4 horsemen, criticism, contempt, defensiveness, stonewalling, if you come at someone with a criticism like that and they don't really know what it is that's happened, and even let's go to the example of the person did something that was correctable, right? Like gave the wrong change or whatever. It's a mistake that was made, and we're talking about an employee, or I should say an employee
like customer service
relationship.
Yeah.
The Gottman stuff is for like intimate relationships or partner relationships, but we're just highlighting this as an example so it's pretty clear. If the employee made a mistake that's correctable, then the criticism is not helpful because the person doesn't know what the employee doesn't know what you're upset about, and they see that it is a correctable kind of a thing, but you've gone beyond the correctable action into some sort of a character attack or addressing like, this person always does this, never does that, and they can think of times where they've actually done the right thing, or maybe this is the one-off, or maybe it is a little bit of a pattern, but it's something that they're working on. They're seeing their internal process and growth, and they're wanting to defend that in themselves. So now what criticism brings or begets, if you will, is defensiveness. Because you're making an attack on that person, and the other person feels like they need to defend themselves. Now you've got 2 people talking at each other and nobody listening. And that's a huge problem for a relationship.
Yeah, I think I really like this metaphor, actually. So think in terms of like this employee gets talked to later about this, right? So they say, hey, this is apparently a person said this. Do you happen, like the manager saying to the employee, do you happen to know like what they're even talking about? Like what's not what they're saying? The employee immediately feels bad, and they feel confused. They feel like maybe a little defensive and like what's going on. They're like trying to figure this out. And as they think about it, they can think of the person like, oh, I bet it's this person. I bet this person did it. They were kind of rude to me. I bet you they said something. It might not have been that person, by the way. There's no way to know.
And let's pretend in this metaphor that the employee didn't even know that they had done the wrong thing. Maybe it was like an honest mistake or an honest error. And so in their mind, they're not even aware that there was a mistake or when it was, which is why also in this the whole idea of criticism, it loses an opportunity to point out to somebody the thing that they have done, to give them some of that information and that feedback so that they can see what happened and take some responsibility for it. Instead, it overlooks that and it just squanders the opportunity with this personal attack. So this employee might not even know, right? Which is kind of a bummer if you're the manager, because they're like, can you tell me what happened? And they're like, honestly, I don't know. I feel like I had a pretty good day, and there were a couple of people that just were like upset and like, I don't know.
Right. And so in the other way about it, when we go back to the intimate relationship zone, if in the same way the conversations happened, the criticism has happened, what do you think the response is going to be by the partner that received the criticism like an hour later? Like what I'll call like bathroom time, when you actually are by yourself. That's what I call it, because the only time where we can be certain really we are by ourselves. And you're thinking, and then you start ruminating. They start ruminating on it, like because they go like, that wasn't true. They start having all these thoughts come to their mind, like, I don't do that. That doesn't happen. Not probably going to breed a lot of love and understanding, long term. They're going to think of arguments. They're going to think of all the things that they want to do and that they want to say, that they should have said, that they didn't say, and they just wish they would have thought faster. That's the kind of stuff that I hear now and then with people. And now the problem is they're not, if on the next interaction that you have with this person, they're not thinking like about stuff like that's just, fun or like, maybe having an easy light time or whatever. In their mind is, okay, well, what's going to happen next? Am I going to pull out my arguments that I have here in my back pocket? What's going to happen here?
It's kind of like if you start out having a bad day where like you spill your coffee on yourself, and then you're late to get to work, and then there's traffic, and then you step in a puddle, and then like your shoe gets soaked or whatever. It's like, sort of grumbling, you're not thinking like,
like Aaron normally does.
What kind of day am I going to have? Right? You're like anticipating this negative that's probably going to happen. The other thing too I'd like to add is that something happens, and we're kind of starting from like a ground zero place, maybe from a blank slate sort of perspective here. Mm-hmm. I know that relationships aren't actually like this. There's a lot of history and what that feed into it. But I want you to see that if you start with a blank slate, when you introduce something like criticism, what happens to that blank slate over time? So let's say we've got a pretty decent relationship. We're connected. We're on the same page, on the same team. When criticism gets introduced, and I'm trying not to assign that to any one person. I'm just simply saying when criticism comes into the relationship, a breach of trust and a violation has been made. Because before, with the blank slate, it's you and I against the problem, right? We're on the same team. Literally, like if there are two teams, us and then the world, or us and whatever the problem is, that's the other team. But when criticism comes in, it pits us against each other. Now, one of us is on the other team and like, whoa, how did my uniform switch? How did I get to the opposing team? And now I'm like, I want to take you down.
Okay, let's go.
Exactly. It's all like Donkey Kong. Like all of a sudden now there's a breach into the partnership and the collaboration of the relationship, and we are now adversaries against one another. And I say there's an invasion as well, where something has invaded our relationship to the extent that we're no longer seeing from the same side of things, seeing the same perspective, communicating with the same goal in mind, right? Because my goal now is to defeat you or defend myself, not the preservation of us and our relationship.
The other piece of that pie is that the person being criticized is going to lose trust in the perspective of the other person. Because if at some point you just look, well, if you're going to look at the world that way, I mean, so the same person's talking about somebody else, right? I mean, how much do you think that partner is going to think, wow, they really look at things accurately, and I'm probably sure that they're really representing that situation really well. Be like, well, probably something might have happened, but more than likely my partner's just looking at it negatively, and they are not allowing for all these other possibilities, right?
It's kind of like you're bringing in actually another piece that I think is really important, which is giving your partner the benefit of the doubt. When you're in a blank slate, when you guys are doing well and you're on the same page together, the other partner might do something, like maybe you set your coffee cup down and they take it to, go rinse it and whatever, and you're like, oh, hey, I wasn't done with that, and they're like, oh, sorry. You're thinking like, oh, my partner was just being helpful, but they just didn't realize that I wasn't done with my coffee, but they're just trying to clean up, and that's cool, but like, hey, I wasn't done, right? You're giving them the benefit of the doubt in your mind. But when you introduce criticism, it's like that negativity gets infused, and instead of giving them the benefit of the doubt, you're assuming some negative, right? Mm-hmm. Some negative intent on the other person. So now instead of taking my coffee cup, I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, I was just going to rinse out your coffee. I'm like, why? Didn't you think that I was done? Aren't you paying attention to me? Like, gosh, you're just always, whatever. Like,
you're horrible.
Right. Instead of imagining that the other person is actually trying to take care of you or our life or our relationship, you're now assuming, again, that they're on the other team.
Yeah, let's take that again. So in that way, if you make the assumption that, like what you're saying, Aaron, so the person does something, whatever, and like the coffee cup, let's stick with it, and they put it away, and then, you come up and you're assuming that positivity or whatever, like they care about you or whatever, and you say to them, hey, what is going on? What are you doing? And then they realize in that moment, like, I actually don't know what I'm doing. Like, I really don't know why I'm grabbing this cup, or, whatever. And then it's different, right? Because then the person's like, oh, well, I thought it was weird that you were doing that because I was still using it, and that's not like you to do that, right? So you're coming at that, and I wanted to ask you, and they're like, yeah, I don't know, I'm just in my head, I'm thinking about something else. I don't even really. It's a totally different conversation, and it's the conversation that actually needs to happen. Whereas in the other situation, you're adding a bunch of data that doesn't even apply. You're like literally making things up.
And this is why the Gottmans say that a soft startup is the antidote to criticism. So if any of this resonates with you, if you're in a relationship and you're like, oh, shoot, I do that, and I do that, and I do that. Actually, if you're in a relationship and you're thinking, my partner does this, my partner does that, my partner does that.
That's what I was thinking.
Then you have some other problems. Yeah. Actually, you are the problem. Just going to say
we have a shirt you can buy.
Right, we do at the swag shop.
Your partner can, maybe.
But the antidote is a soft startup, which, let me kind of break that down. Something happens, maybe there's something that's happened, going back to the employee thing or the coffee cup thing. Instead of going at the other person, probably because you are dysregulated, you're angry, you're upset, you're frustrated, you're annoyed, take a moment, whether it's like 30 seconds, 10 seconds, or maybe it's got to be like a couple of minutes or 10 minutes. Don't say anything, right? Let this thing like settle down in you, like take some breaths, right? Don't ruminate on it, but like, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to say? I need to bring this up to the person, and do a soft startup where you are bringing the issue to the other person. Hey, can I talk to you for a second? And then sort of give them a chance to respond, right? You're just coming at them with like, hey, you did this. Like, hey, can I talk to you? Is there a reason why you took my coffee cup? Maybe it's like asking a question to gather information to see what the other person's response is. Like, oh, I was just trying to, clean up, because I knew you had a busy day or whatever. Now you've got some more information that's telling you, oh, they didn't have an intent to hurt you, right? And then maybe bring your complaint and focus it on an action and a behavior. Like, okay, well, that's good. I appreciate that. That's really thoughtful of you. It's just frustrating to me sometimes when I'm not quite done with something and you're like quick to help, a little bit quicker than, when I'm ready for. And it's not a huge deal, but it does I feel frustrated about it sometimes. So the soft startup is you're kind of easing into it, maybe asking for some information from the other person, sort of giving them a chance to tell you their side of things without even them knowing that there was an issue, right? So they're not on the defense. They might be like, oh, why do you ask, And then you're telling them what the behavior is that happened and a little bit about how you felt about it. And that's it. That doesn't breed contempt or defensiveness, but usually like curiosity and like, oh man, I'm really sorry. Like I didn't mean to do that, right? This like care and compassion from the other person. That's what you want to elicit.
Yeah. So same scenario, but quicker, right? One trick is don't start with you. Don't start with you. Start with I. And start with what you feel. So you feel whatever you feel. Go. I feel frustrated right now. Like they're gonna try. What's going on? Why is that?
Right. What happened?
Well, you took my coffee cup and you put it away. Now, that's not it's very different than if it goes a different direction, right? Because in that scenario, you can even hear that in your mind's eye, And because what would you say? You're as the listener right now, you probably say like, "Oh, well, I thought I was helping," right? So different conversation is my point. So start with an I statement about what you feel. I feel bad because you're always so stupid. Don't do that.
No, don't.
Don't. This is not.
And avoid always and never.
Yeah.
That's another part.
Oh my goodness, that's never true.
Exactly.
Anyway, we hope this has been helpful. We got to turn for home. I know that you want us to keep talking.
And we will. Stay tuned for the next episodes because we will break down the rest of the three other horsemen, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling, as well as their antidotes in the upcoming episodes.
But all you need to do right now is have a great day.
I said good, you said great.
Because it's always great.
You have higher standards for people. I set the bar low. I'm like, you can do it. Have a good day. You're like, I had a great day. I'm like, didn't that feel great? And if you only had a kind of good day or whatever, it's like, oh, but it wasn't great. I'm so disappointed.
I hope you have a fine day. What? I hope your day's really fine.
Hope you always have a good day.
I hope your day is, a day.
Hope you never have a bad day.
Hope...
Ever. No pressure.
I hope minutes go by in your day and you're breathing.
Low bar.
Low
I hope
bar.
you wake up today. Is that a threat? Are you going to murder me?
I hope you go to sleep soon. Wait, this seems like it's turned.
Oh,